Okay, welcome folks. I'm Peter, and today I will be talking about artificial intelligence implementation and the impact of it in financial management. So my agenda today will be basically about the research background of AI and machine learning. Then I will elaborate about my research objectives. Then I will continue to talk about the literature review, and lastly I will show my references. So let's jump right in. First of all, let's introduce AI and machine learning. Basically, the definition of AI was coined by Mr. McAfee in 1956. And he defined artificial intelligence as a system using methods to achieve a specified goal in situations where information have a certain degree of complexity. Another pioneer of AI is Mr. Minsky, and he defined artificial intelligence as a system with the capabilities of solving difficult problems. And let's look at the goals of artificial intelligence that were defined by the researcher 𒈝Our. Basically, the goal of artificial intelligence is to create an intelligent agent that can, based on the environment, learn from the experience and make intelligent decisions, improve the optimal behavior, and through this trial and error, improve itself. And now we move on to the definition of machine learning, which is more advanced than AI. Basically, machine learning can be defined as being taught that a decision making will execute a decision based on data from a previous decision, which is basically defined by Coidel and Mondando. They also defined machine learning as a system that is learning from an experience, looking at a specific performance indicator, and then changing its experience. And let's look at some use cases of artificial intelligence. Basically, artificial intelligence is designed to solve problems, and there are many types of problems. For example, classification problems, which is basically a binary problem. We are looking at an outcome of 1 or 0, so the AI system will decide if it's 1 or 0. Then we are looking at anomaly detection problems. These problems are basically systems that are looking at the pattern, trying to identify an outlier, an anomaly. Another problem that AI is solving are regression problems. For example, the prediction of stock indices or the prediction of time series forecasting. And in the graph, we see a little history of AI and the breakthroughs. Basically, the very first AI application was made in 1951, which was a program which was designed to beat a checkers player. Checkers is a board game. And later on, during the age of machine learning, which started in the 70s, the biggest breakthrough was the chess AI, which was Deep Blue, which beat the chess world champion Garry Kasparov. And these days we are in the deep learning era, where we are basically working with artificial neural networks, and this is basically AI which is replicating the human brain, basically mimicking neurons. And now let's move on to the conceptual framework, what I'm expecting to find through my research. I want to find out what is the organizational impact of companies that are implementing AI in their financial management. And in order to elaborate on this research, I'm looking at the top management, I'm looking at the training and the development of AI, I'm looking at the financial means of AI, the costs, the ROIs. I'm looking at the IT of AI algorithms, how are they learning, how are they designed, the infrastructure. And last but not least, I'm looking at the employee competencies, looking to the training, the legal and the ethical insights of employees that are using AI in the company. So let's jump to my second research objective, which is basically the critical success factors of implementing AI in an enterprise. And the most important thing is to understand, first of all, the financing and the cost. Oh, sorry. For the financing and the cost, we have several researchers talking about the legal costs, especially the research from Mr. Wall in 2018, also Mr. Baramis and Mrs. Siddiq from MIT are looking at the implementation of AI and the costs that come with the legal framework of using these new technologies, also looking at the risk management of using these new technologies. The next critical success factor is basically the technology option. There are a myriad of different algorithms and AI technologies, and to choose the right technology for the right solution is very crucial to find the best solution for the use case. And next of all, we have the unpredictability and the uncertainty of the ROI. If a company wants to implement an AI solution, they are facing a lot of uncertainty, and their investment in the implementation might be unprofitable, which is another case for risk management and project management. And the last point for a critical success factor would be the management of change and the culture clash. Companies are not sometimes willing to change their culture and their values, and there are also risks involved with the perception of the employees, because obviously employees know that if AI will be implemented, that the operational level would probably not hire more employees because AI will supposedly take over their position in the operational level. Let's look at the third research objectives, which is basically the impact of AI in financial management. Basically, the researchers from Harvard are arguing that managers in the future that use AI will be superior compared to managers that don't use AI. And the prime examples would be the company Rebellion Research. It was the very first hedge fund that was using an AI-powered trading algorithm in 2005. And their track record is very sophisticated. They have over 14 years outperformed the S&P 500 index. Another very good use case is by Danske Bank. It's a bank from Denmark, and they're basically using AI as a tool of an anomaly detection. They are using AI to look for transactions which are basically linked to fraud. And once again, they're using AI, just looking at the patterns of bank transactions, trying to find an outlier, and the results were also astonishing. They achieved over 60% reduction in false positive rates of fraud detection. Let's look at my next research objective. It is basically AI implementation in other industries, not only financial management. And I want to point out two very good examples. General Electric has a subsidiary called GE Digital, and they are building software application and software suites for Industry 4.0. It is, in other words, IIoT, the Industry Internet of Things, and they're basically empowering manufacturing companies with AI and with cloud computing. So, for example, they have a very successful software called the 𝒝This software, and it helps manufacturing companies to predict the asset health of their machinery inside the factories. This is just a small feature from GE. And another very good example is in PSP Academy. This year they implemented the smart gantry system. It is basically a facial recognition system using AI, which is basically a classification problem, because when you scan your face, the system knows that, okay, you are a student, and additionally, they will scan your temperature and also add an entry to the COVID contact tracing, which is nowadays very important during this era. Let's look at some AI implementation recommendation. Once again, I'm looking at all industries, and I think the most famous implementation that I mentioned was basically fraud detection, which is used in the banking sector. Another one would be the text and speech understanding. For example, for Google, the new Google and Amazon are using the new text-to-speech applications, where you can just tell your phone, hey Google, tell me the phone number of this restaurant. This is a very good application. And other good use cases would be document automation. For example, computerized accounting. That accounting entries are immediately computerized, automated, and then put into the database using simple AI algorithms. Now let's take a look at the literature review that I have been elaborating and collecting. So about the AI implementation in the top management, we have several researchers that are basically looking at, first of all, the impact of artificial intelligence in human resource management, which is by Capelli. Another good research was basically digital technologies affecting skills, jobs, and the demand of human labor, which is also very important for top management. And another very interesting research for AI and top management would be the impact of AI in competency structures, roles, and focused on corporate finance management. Let's take a look at training and development of AI literature review. I've basically looked at algorithmic trading, the newest research of successfully predicting stock indices and successfully predicting other time series programs. I also found some interesting research about banking. basically AI adoption, implementation, as well as the evolution of AI in the banking and the financial services sector. And another topic of my literature review would be basically the predicting financial means of AI implementation. How can we predict the ROI of our AI solution, or how can we predict the costs of implementing AI in the company? And I think another interesting research would be the project prioritization, which is also looking at how to prioritize AI implementation in enterprises. Then IT of AI, this is basically looking at the semantics of AI, looking under the hood of the AI technology, which is about the learning paradigms, the AI rules, and the different learning algorithms that are used to train AI. And last but not least, employee competencies. In this literature review, I've been looking at research that basically poses ethical questions and shows employee reactions to AI implementation in their company, especially looking at AI implementation in the operational level. And another very interesting research is basically the impact of AI on employee competencies in the corporate financial management, for example, accountancy and planning. These are my references. So thank you very much. I'm open now for any questions. You can leave any questions in the comments. I have a few more additional slides about the project management of AI, just showing a little framework. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much.